Hey guys, it's Chris. From ones with expensive tastes to ones that cater to all the things a customer would need and more. Join me as I show you the 11 most impressive stadiums in the world. Number 11, Lotus Flower Stadium. Before looking at the stadiums that are able to be seen right now, let's look to the future, to one that will surely blow people's minds once it's finished. The Guangzhou Evergrande Soccer Stadium, which is also going to be known as the Lotus Flower Stadium, is an impressive building that has begun construction right now and is set to be the largest purpose-built stadium in the world. The stadium would also include entertainment, commercial and dining areas, and is likely to be completed by the end of 2022. As you can see, the entire structure will look like a giant lotus flower, one that will have many colors via LED lights. More importantly though, it'll be able to house around 100,000 people, making it one of the biggest seated stadiums in the world. Number 10, Allianz Arena. Located in Germany, Allianz Arena is without a doubt one of the most beautiful stadiums in the world today. Not just in terms of its shape and complexion, but rather because since 2005, the color of the outside of the stadium changes colors. It goes from red to blue among other colors, and is white when the lights itself aren't on, giving fans something unique and special to look at before they even enter the stadium itself. What's more, the LED light show also transforms into patterns to make it all the more special every 30 seconds, including giving patterns of flags depending on who's playing there. Then, when you do eventually enter the arena itself, you'll find even more light shows to welcome you to the match you're about to watch. But if you're in need of food and drinks, you'll have plenty of options to choose from. Allianz Arena has over 28 kiosks for you to go to if you're in a hurry, or you have 2 fully fledged restaurants you can dine at with your friends or family. If that's still not enough, there are kids' rooms, changing rooms, office spaces should you need it, and more. Finally, if you're in some of the higher-up seats and you can't really see the field that well, there are 750 screens placed around the stadium that'll help you get every single detail in sight. Number 9, the float at Marina Bay. Singapore is known for having all sorts of attractions in order to lure in tourists and people from across the world. So it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise that they have a major sports stadium there that is known as the Float. But why it's called the Float is what makes it one of the most amazing and special sports fields in the entire world, which we don't say lightly. As you'll see, the playing field, built originally for soccer, is literally built upon the water, which was done intentionally so people can watch the game while chilling in or near the water. And it also gives a more peaceful aesthetic, instead of just looking at the fans who are watching the game. But don't think that this means there's not a lot of places to sit down if you really want to watch the game in the regular way. Far from it, as there are 30,000 seats available for you to sit in on the land. And here's where some irony comes in. You see, the Float was supposed to be a temporary place to hold matches until a more traditional stadium could be born. But that never happened, and people of all types took to the Float for its unique feel and setting. So much so that soccer matches honestly aren't played there often, but in their place are massive concerts, national events, and more. And now for number 8, but first, be sure to subscribe to World List if you haven't already. Number 8, FNB Stadium. Located in Johannesburg, South Africa, FNB Stadium is something to behold. Just as important, though, is the reason why it was allowed to be built at all. Back in 2010, the FIFA World Cup was to be held in Africa for the first time ever. But the qualifications for having such a thing happen required them to make a stadium that was much bigger than what they had in order to hold the World Cup final. Thus, they made FNB Stadium. To be clear, the stadium wasn't built from scratch, but rather reconstructed from the previous soccer stadium that had been in South Africa since 1989. This upgrade was not just well done, but well suited for the needs at hand, as FNB Stadium could now hold over 95,000 people, making it the largest stadium on the continent. Since its construction, FNB Stadium has been a hotspot for many kinds of events, including ones you may not expect. Sure, they had plenty of local and international soccer matches, but they've also held memorial services for people like the late Nelson Mandela, as well as concerts for stars like U2, Justin Bieber, and Lady Gaga. Given its popularity and its capacity, it's unlikely that FNB Stadium will be lacking for events in the future. Number 7, Bird's Nest Stadium. Technically speaking, the stadium we're referring to right now is not officially known as Bird's Nest Stadium. It's instead known as the Beijing National Stadium. But to just about anyone who goes there, or who has seen it over the course of many trips, they all refer to it by its nickname Bird's Nest Stadium. And looking upon the structure, it's not hard to see why. The way that the building is constructed, with the intertwining pieces and beams and such, it looks like how a bird would construct a nest with twigs and branches. The only difference here is that Bird's Nest Stadium is made of 42,000 tons of steel, which made it the biggest steel building ever when it was opened in 2008. But why use that much steel? Well, that's simple. The Chinese wanted the building to last. And with its materials, barring a disaster imposed upon it, the building could easily last over 100 years, which is good for the Chinese because the stadium is able to hold 91,000 people, which in turn can make them a lot of money if they're able to sell out venues on the regular. To help ensure that the stadium lasts against Mother Nature, they made a new kind of steel called Q35, which is able to withstand earthquakes, as well as endure fluctuating temperatures that Beijing, China is known to have year-round. Number 6. Kaohsiung Stadium. In Taiwan, you'll find a rather impressive structure known as Kaohsiung Stadium. What sets this one apart from virtually every other stadium out there is simple: its outer wall. Most stadiums have a rounded, closed-off structure, or sometimes a horseshoe depending on the need or desire. But with Kaohsiung, they decided to have the outer wall cover 3 parts of the stadium, and then have it end in an elongated state that makes it feel more like a tail. Plus, when you look at the wall, you notice the top layer feels like scales when glimpsed. You'll no doubt think, like many others, that this is a dragon's tail. But the tail is more than just an eye catcher. It's actually made to help the people attending the games. You see, because of its design, it'll take hot air, and it can get really hot in Kaohsiung, and allow it to cool as people walk through the stadium to get to their seats. That way, they're not already uncomfortable by the time they sit down. Number 5. Maracana Stadium. There are certain places in the world where you would expect a major stadium to be, and Rio de Janeiro in Brazil is one such place. Thankfully, they do not disappoint that expectation, as Maracana Stadium is indeed one of the most amazing stadiums in the world. Believe it or not, it's honestly one of the older stadiums that's around today, as it was built in the year 1950 for the World Cup. And during that World Cup, the stadium held a record that has not been broken. They held over 200,000 fans to watch the finals of the Cup. What might surprise you even more was that despite the stadium opening in 1950, it wasn't finished until 1965. And even with the more finished settings, it still drew over 100,000 people over 284 times in its life. But eventually things got a little more safety-minded, and true seating and ticket sales were enforced. But that hasn't stopped the stadium from hosting events with over 78,000 people in attendance. Number 4. Wembley Stadium. In terms of stadiums that are truly multi-purpose, Wembley Stadium may just have been the most famous of them all. It housed numerous sports leagues, including the English Football League. It was a staple in many major world events, including the legendary Live Aid concert that happened in 1985, and featured the epic performance by Queen, which was recreated nearly point by point in the film Bohemian Rhapsody. However, in 2007, the new version of Wembley Stadium opened up, and it actually opened up on the very grounds the original was on, thus preserving the legacy of the original and looking towards the future. The stadium can hold an incredible 90,000 people. It is the largest sports arena and stadium in England, and is second in Europe only to Camp Nou in Spain. Though soccer is what the stadium is known for most, the people who own it have allowed various other sports to be held in the stadium. This includes rugby matches, boxing matches, and in recent years, the NFL have brought some of their games to Wembley. The building was designed and built by an Australian and cost $1 billion in modern currency. Number 3. Camp Nou Stadium. Spain is one of many countries who love soccer with all that they have. And in 1957, the team known as FC Barcelona felt that they needed and deserved a stadium that could truly house them and their fans. At the time, they had one that could hold 48,000 people. By the time they were done, they had a place that doubled that. Camp Nou Stadium is able to hold 99,000 screaming fans, and FC Barcelona most definitely has that. Not to mention, it's the largest stadium in all of Europe, proving that the Spaniards knew exactly what they were doing when they went all in for this place. What's more, various institutions over the years have given Camp Nou their highest honors in terms of its quality, including a 5-star rating and a Category 4 ranking. The place has chapels, VIP centers, news centers, a medical facility, and even a museum. Number 2. AT&T Stadium. How about them Cowboys? The NFL is the biggest sport in America. And when it comes to the most popular team, that would be the Dallas Cowboys. Their owner, Jerry Jones, has gone above and beyond for the team multiple times in order to make sure they have everything they need to succeed. And that included making the biggest and most luxurious stadium the NFL had ever seen via the AT&T Stadium. Because of its unique setup, the place can fluctuate in terms of how many people it can seat. On regular events, it can push about 80,000. But in terms of major events like the Super Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, or other big games, they can squeeze together the seats in order to get over 100,000 people into the stadium. And as if that wasn't enough, Jerry Jones put in a massive 160-foot-long, 71-feet-high jumbotron in the middle of the stadium so that everyone can see what's going on in the game. It's so big that sometimes the punters in the NFL hit the jumbotron with their punts. Number 1. Panathinaikos Stadium. Greece is an important nation in terms of both history and sports, and so it shouldn't be too shocking that a legendary stadium is there via the iconic Panathinaikos Stadium. What separates this one from all the others is simple: age. It's been around since 330 BC. The place had started out as a racetrack, then a stadium was built around it, then it was renovated and made of marble. And then it slowly became the hotspot for many major sporting events, which would eventually include the oldest versions of the Olympic Games. Eventually, a Roman emperor deemed it illegal to hold events there, so it was forgotten and ruined until archaeologists found it in 1835, and the people of Athens rushed to rebuild it, which worked in their favor because it was Panathinaikos Stadium that held the first of the modern Olympics in 1896. Since then, it's held many events and continues to hold events to this day. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these truly impressive stadiums? Were you amazed by their construction? Have you visited any of these stadiums? Or which of them would you like to go and visit in person most? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on World List.